Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Story number 1. The Caretakers, written by C-SPAN. From a distance, it was hard to tell the ship was in fact a ship at all. You could be forgiven for thinking that it was merely 2 asteroids tumbling through space. But if you looked closer, you could make out the glitter of radiators and solar panels, the seemingly randomly placed bell nozzles, and the occasional glint of starlight reflecting off the cables connecting the 2 bodies. To be fair, your initial impression would have been half right. One of the rocks was just that, simply counterbalance for spin gravity generation. But the other was a spaceship, one designed to weather the harsh interstellar radiation and sustain itself across the centuries required to deliver its precious cargo. Buried deep within the heart of the ship were millions of gametes, more than enough to give humanity a fresh start under the light of a new star. There were also 6 people. These 6 people were probably the most detached from the human condition as it was possible to be. They were born on the ship, and they would die on the ship. To them, an open sky, sunlight, unprocessed air, nutrients that hadn't already passed through their bodies hundreds of times, and a social circle larger than 6 people were utterly foreign concepts. They were caretakers of perhaps the single most important piece of cargo in human history. Their job was to maintain the ship, deal with the unexpected hazards, incubate and raise the next generation of caretakers, and die. And they had absolutely no say in the matter. When your entire universe consists of 9 rooms with instant death a few meters away, your only 2 options are to perform the tasks you were trained to do from birth, or die horribly in an accident and doom the human race in the process. Teenage rebellion couldn't quite overcome the survival instinct. One of the few crew members of the ship was a man. This man had a name. He was of the opinion that it was rather a nice name, but that ultimately didn't matter. His name would be functionally lost to history, relegated to a list in a subsection of a footnote that nobody would ever bother to read. The names of the first generation would be remembered. They were the brave men and women who set out on a journey to another star. The names of the last generation, the ones who completed their centuries-long journey and set foot on a new world, they would be remembered too. But not the people in the middle. The man knew this and was a little disquieted by it. He consoled himself that he was critical to the mission, and the long-term success or failure of the project may well depend entirely on him. That's what the previous generation told him, after all. Technically speaking, that was a lie. While the ship was designed with a crew of 6 in mind, as few as 2 people could theoretically operate the entire craft. Everyone was trained on every part of the ship's operation. It's true that the man was the only one who had maintained the delicate hydroponic systems that kept the crew fed. But this was simply because he was the best at it, not because he was the only one capable. The man knew all this too, but chose to ignore it to preserve his sanity. The man was, however, special in a way the other caretakers of the ship were not. He was special because he was going to push a button. Everyone on the ship had pushed thousands of buttons, of course, but this was a special button. It would only be pressed once, as it did one thing and one thing only. It opened the massive solar sail that would catch the light from the destination star and use it to slow the entire craft down. The force exerted by the light from this far away was minuscule, and the ship was going incredibly fast, so it would take several centuries to come to a stop. However, it was the only way to decelerate the ship without using the reaction mass, so it would have to do. Reaction mass was the single most precious commodity on the ship. As there was nowhere to get more, there aren't very many gas stations in interstellar space, after all. The button actually wasn't strictly necessary, as the ship's computer was capable of opening the sail at the precise microsecond it needed to. but the ship's designers believed in nothing if not redundancy. So there was a physical button that opened the sail, in the event that all 4 of the ship's computers failed. They hadn't, but the opening of the sail was the most significant event in the lives of the caretakers aboard the ship, and they were determined to do more than just stare at a computer screen. The slight error in opening time introduced by human reaction time was negligible this far out. The caretakers found out that one of them would get to push the button when they were children. Later that same day, they made a bet. The man won the bet, so 30 years later, he was the one standing at the control console while the other 5 looked on. Having all 6 crew members in the same room was a rare occurrence, as the staggered nature of the work schedule usually ensured that at least 2 of them were asleep at any given time. But none of them wanted to miss this. There was a small countdown timer displayed on a nearby screen, and the crew watched with bated breath as it slowly ticked down. The countdown reached 0. The man pushed the button, the sail opened, the crew cheered, and had a little celebration with some alcohol that they had fermented for the occasion a few months back. Then they went back to their assigned tasks, and the ship flew ever onward in a sea of endless night. End of story. Story number 2. May Your Fortunes Hold, written by British Tea Company. Battlecruiser Kongu was leaving formation. She was a name ship of the Kongu-class battlecruisers, one of the favorite warships of the Sol Imperium's navy, praised for their versatility in any operation. Kongu herself had served in many missions for over a decade, the ship and her crew having had many changes, upgrades, and awards over the past 10 years. Though she was no longer the most advanced ship in the fleet, she was certainly still the most decorated. The Admiral may have threatened a court-martial, but this was going to be an honorable discharge. Battlecruiser Kongu's shields hurled against the wave of alien fire. Her hull buckled as her generators fumed, but she held. She was as loyal as this crew, ready to do her duty in the line of battle. Her primary guns sent another volley, scratching another alien destroyer. The rain of torpedoes, which sent her shield strength down to 60%, did not dissuade her or her furious charge into the armada. The chief engineer reported his work was done. The Admiral, ranting and threatening, had gone to a desperate plea. The captain smiled and rubbed his locket one last time. The shot glass was emptied next to it. There was one last thing about battlecruiser Kongu that only few people still knew, though none of the other Kongu classes had this problem. It was discovered after the fact that the warp core of the Kongu herself had a design flaw, which could potentially cause a hazardous breach in subspace if improperly handled, or in this case, properly handled. A well-aimed shot took the Kongu's conning tower. Her hull began to grow as though she was dying, but she continued to drive. A last array of torpedoes was sent in defiance against the alien menace. The captain stared at his communications officer and gestured him to move over. He stared at the locket once more before caressing it to his heart. "To the rest of the Imperium," he began as the countdown until subspace detonation began. And in the final moments, the captain thought of his father, the admiral of this fleet. He thought about his crew, their families. He thought about the woman in the locket. He thought about his enemy, the thousands of ships which he had plunged straight into the midst of. "May your fortunes hold, for we will be watching in Valhalla." End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons: Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barky, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.